If one has a talent and fails to use it, one has failed.
Yeah, I
If
like that.
one has a talent and partially uses it, they have partially failed. But if one has a talent and finds somehow to use the whole of it, they have gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction few people ever know.
Beautiful.
Well, I intend to help the boomers find that satisfaction and joy few people ever know because it will heal the world, it will help our communities, and we need a lot of healing and thriving that has been shut down because of the pandemic.
Welcome to Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, where we hear real stories from real people and we tackle all sorts of fun topics in the areas of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, mindset, the arts, and, well, life itself. It's amazing what you will pick up. Thanks for joining us. Well, welcome back, everyone. Darren Saul here, your host of Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast. First episode for 2025. I hope everybody's had a fantastic end of year, holidays, and is rearing to go for the new year. I have a fantastic guest here from the US. Sharon Rolph is here. How are you, Sharon?
I am good. Kind of wet here. Like Seattle gets a lot of rain and it rained a little bit today. But we don't have drastic weather. The mountains have the snow.
Yep.
Do you have snow in Australia?
We do. Not right now. It's summer. It's warm here. But in winter, we definitely have the snow.
Well, I need to tell people I've been to Australia. How many people can say that?
Absolutely. You're right. I've never been to Seattle. I'm definitely coming one of these days.
Yeah, we changed that.
Love it. So, Sharon, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really looking forward to having a chat. I'll give everybody a little bit of a rundown into who Sharon is. So, for most of her life, Sharon felt invisible. And when she retired, she wondered how she'd know if she was productive. Today, she's a motivating influencer at 77, an author, podcast guest, and the Queen of Courage on Instagram. Her days now feel right since finding her spark, and she offers her transformation to the public for the first time. Sharon is the perfect person to help others matter outside of work and live a meaningful, impactful life with wisdom and confidence. Potential has intrigued her from a young age, and she loves uniqueness. She inspires curiosity and possibilities in everyone. So we're going to be chatting all about from feeling invisible to the Queen of Courage. So Sharon, tell us a bit more about your story. What a great story. And tell us a bit more about your journey and how this came about.
Yes. Hey, I grew up on a farm. You've got farms in Australia, right?
We have plenty of farms in Australia.
Milked cows, stacked hay, gathered the eggs, put chickens in the freezer for the winter, stuff like that,
Oh, wow.
But we also grew peaches and apples by the time I left home. But I wanted to be invisible as a kid. And how many of us kids, when we were kids, there was dysfunctional homes and there was abusive situation in our home. And I thought, if I just double down, get focused, don't rock the boat, be obedient and get good grades, maybe I'd be safe. And it worked, but I didn't realize until I retired that I was still invisible because I had felt in my work I was responsible and diligent and focused to some degree, but way down deep in my stomach, I didn't feel seen or heard.
Wow.
I was quite familiar with not feeling heard. Seeing was not that obvious to me, but the amazing thing is I did do Dale Carnegie courses.
Wow.
I did do a Toastmasters. I even went to a Toastmasters convention, but that was all out of my own initiative. I wasn't doing that for my job. Sort of applies. And I did, before I retired, I did do like a 10-minute speech in front of some supervisors and managers and stuck my neck out a little bit. But after I retired, I found this webinar from the UK that said it was how to have mental strength. Oh, nobody's talking about that. I think I need to check this out. But it was like an hour for 5 days of the week, and I had conflicts with 4 of the 5 days. So I just mainly got to see the first day. And he said, when you're facing a tough situation and maybe you're going to go into a meeting that you don't know how it's going to turn out, or you have to meet somebody that might be rough well, he said, first, recall to mind a warm memory. And his warm memory example was he'd always wanted to learn to fly a plane.
Oh, cool.
And so he had a picture of a 3 or 4-year-old boy in the back of his plane, and he was flying the plane. And he said, well, we call the weather and what kind of day it was and how did you get in the day to this point. So my story was about a Christmas program that I was delegated to be a reader for the Christmas program in 3rd grade. Anyway, he said, well, hold that warm memory for 15 seconds, then go into your meeting, and it's going to go a lot better for you.
Wow.
Get your mind in the right vibration, they call it these days. But about a week later, I thought, why just have one warm memory? Let's see how many I could come up with. Shock was half my list was in front of people. Now, I just retired. Was I in the wrong career? Well, that together with a profile that I had done a few weeks before this, the results came in the mail and they said, you're an influencer. Me? You've got the wrong person. No, forget that. Something's wrong with your profile. But I did little by little think maybe there could be something with this. And I got a call from New York City about doing a podcast and actually had to pay $1,500 in those days just to be a guest.
Oh, really? Oh, my God.
Yeah, they gave me one of these professional microphones, but they said, it was 3-4 hours later after it had been published. They said, well, we saw that you had energy and something to say. Yeah, I do. And so they convinced me into having my own podcast then. And that was back in 2019, I think. But it was about taking baby steps, testing the waters, see what happens. So anyway, that's how I shrugged off my invisibility.
Wow. And did you ever come up to clash with that issue earlier? Like, did you decide a few times I want to change that and never did, or you just never really worried about it until now?
Well, I wasn't the queen of courage yet. That came later. I was very much aware a couple of times, like one meeting, there was 10 or 15 of us in a meeting with the top guy at our building. And I don't know if he was a regional director or what exactly. I don't even know how they chose me to be in the room, but I had a distinct feeling you're always supposed to assume that he's got all the knowledge, and so we should ask him questions. And there was inkling of curiosity that I wonder if he has any questions for us. I wanted so bad to have the nerve to break the norm here and ask him what would he like to know from us. And I never got the nerve to do that.
Wow.
But it was strong on my mind. I nervous about, I don't think I'd even shaken hands with this guy before. So I would have stepped out of, but later, some of my college classes, I remember coming back one time from summer and some of the content that we had covered. I thought about, I've been in a couple meetings where there was 8 or 10 people. And I imagine kicking the back of my chair. Come on, Sharon, come on, put something out there. What you put out there would maybe be what others wish they could say if they had the courage.
100%. And what line of work were you working in?
Well, at that time, I was working for the phone company, GTE, General Telephone.
Yep.
So when we would have team meetings or a mixture of team meetings, there was often what needed to be discussed wasn't getting put out on the table. People were too nervous or anxious or don't rock the boat kind of people like I had been. But as I went through college classes and started dealing with some of the recovery work, I considered being strong enough for the people coming behind me to be a model. for
Nice.
those, to help them have the courage. Because kind of always liked the being vulnerable. I make these little art blocks, and I have one here that
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
kind of speaks very well about vulnerability is the willingness to show up and be seen without any guarantee of the outcome.
I love that. I love that.
And so I figured if I stuck my neck out there and lived to tell about it, you could maybe stick your neck out and live to tell about it too. That reciprocity of, oh, yeah, she didn't get ridiculed or chastised for what she said. And she was brave. Maybe I can be brave too.
Love it. And that's a really good point, because a lot of us tend to stay in our lane. And when we know that there's something that needs to be said or something that's really important to us that we want to share that might benefit a lot of people, we sometimes get scared to say it. And I think it's really important to overcome that and say it anyway. Of course, you have to choose your audience carefully.
Yeah. I was watching it. I'm a big fan of Hallmark movies. And I was laying on my little couch here, and the story was something about a dude ranch. And the line said, when you go home from vacation, you often go home with fresh courage. Fresh courage. That's a new novel term,
Love that.
And I thought I had already learned that, or come to feel like I had more of a backbone when I got home from vacation.
Yeah.
I had more grit. That needed to be solved, and now I've got the courage to take care of it. Well, I went on to use that term fresh courage a lot. My book is called Fresh Courage in Retirement, Finding
Cool. And that's one of your designs on the front as well, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I've got them scattered throughout my book because our brain processes beauty, color in a different way than just words. Yeah. Somebody told me they knew the difference, and they never did tell me. That I love color, I love sewing, and I love words of wisdom. And so voila, I made it into artwork.
Very, very cool. So in terms of how you are now, what does courage mean to you? How do you feel when you're in your courage, if I put that in inverted commas?
Well, I think to some degree it has to do with our purpose. And our purpose has a lot to do with our values.
Great.
I've been pondering here the last 3-4 months I think I had a sense of authenticity as a kid, a young kid. I never tried to be somebody else. I just was me, role playing. Even in college, sometimes I had to do some role playing in my recovery work. And it always felt so weird. But courage is the ability to get back up after getting knocked down, or it could be being strong enough convictions that you're willing to step up to the plate when nobody else is, like my examples. But Darren, when I was doing my podcast, I thought I want to have somebody come on my podcast to talk about courage. I had to ask 8 or 10 people for who do you know that's courageous?
Wow, no way.
There's a problem here, folks. When you find somebody to talk about courage.
Absolutely.
And I did find a gentleman that was fascinating. In fact, I had lunch with him just before Thanksgiving, and he's now 91, but he has a PhD, and he was a theologian, and he was a soccer umpire, and he started one of the first senior centers in Montana. No, Montana was where he was a railroad guide, I guess, tour guide kind of thing. So he's just done lots of things. There's nothing that stops this guy. But that's part of the secret of life, is having curiosity, trying things out. It keeps you young, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a huge part of life, is being open. It's almost ties into vulnerability. It's being open to putting yourself out there, doing different things, and not worrying so much, not being so attached to the outcome.
Yeah. And being able to laugh at life, and learn and grow. That's one of my signature in my emails, or the secret to fulfillment is learn and grow. That's a line from Tony Robbins.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, because we can stay in our lane. We can do the same thing we've always done. We can always use the same operating system we've always had that served us when we were a kid. But what a shame if we don't change that and taste new things and be curious and learn and grow and change our operating system and experience life in a different way.
Well, that goes along with you're paying for the roof over your head, you're paying for your car, and you're paying for your kids' education, and life becomes monotonous. We're doing the same thing over and over. And that's a big problem with going into retirement, because once you don't have to pay for college anymore, and you don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to your job, and the monotony of life all of a sudden changes when you no longer have a team and a company to work for and a title. This is my podcast card. You don't have a reason to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning anymore. You don't have a boss. I started bouncing off the walls. I thought, how do I know if I'm productive? Oh, yeah, I don't have a boss anymore to report to and keep happy and all that.
Yeah.
And I gradually realized I'm the boss now. And when I have to decide what my title and task is, your title and task is to be socially healthy, emotionally healthy, physically healthy, and mentally healthy.
Love that. Love that.
It's a big job, and nobody's really explaining that to us going into retirement years. Yeah.
And so what do you do then? How did you make that transition from not knowing if you were going to be productive to putting in place some kind of system where you would make sure that you're productive every day?
Well, that's my secret sauce here, Darren. And I do have kind of a visual aid on that.
Yeah, 90-day discovery. Beautiful.
Yeah. Make a list of 20 things you love to do. Can you name 20 things you love to do?
I could probably name about 10. 20 might be a stretch.
Yeah. For some reason, I always I love the smell of fresh mown grass.
Yeah, so do I.
But I'm not mowing the grass, but that's what I think of when I think of 20 things I love to do. Crazy. Okay. Your personal qualities, the fact that you might like that you like to laugh or make others laugh, or that you're responsible, or that you're integrity or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, there's things like your hot buttons that kind of help decide what you're all about, what irks you or what makes you proud. I was working at the phone company. We had some lean agents client. No, it's a system. But every now and then when I'd be driving to work, I thought, oh, look, somebody improved that sign on the highway. Way to go. Somebody's made
thank God, yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, better. But one of my hot buttons is, how come all the motorcycle guys are wearing black? Do you help me see black on the highway? The highway's black too. Help me out here.
That's true. Yep, I love it.
Anyway, but the thing that we hardly ever talk about, it seems like, is your values. Well, I'm becoming real sensitive to what a difference values make. Because, and in fact, I'm going to talk about it in my Loneliness to Resilience community that I do every week. And I forgot the title of it. Values, what do values have to do with mental health? That's a strange question, right?
Yes, it is. But I can see the correlation for sure.
So often when I'm driving and stopped at a light and I see people walking along with their head down and their hoodie up and just shuffling along, it touches me, because what do they believe about themselves? And what they believe about themselves has something to do maybe with some parent or teacher that called them names or stupid or you'll never make anything, and they believed it. And what a shame of a potential. Okay, potential means a lot to me, because I started wondering what my potential was as a teenager. So this shuffling down the road with watching the sidewalk is potential that needs to be reprogrammed.
Definitely.
So I think I've gotten off key, but okay. So when you take those 20 things you love to do, is there a correlation with, do they speak to your values? Okay. So you like photography a great deal.
I do. Yeah.
What is there about photography that might be reflecting your values?
Good question. I would say curiosity is part of that. I'm very curious. I'm very open-minded. I love people. I love watching people and studying psychology and human interaction. So I can perceive and see a lot of that when I'm out in the field taking photographs. It allows me to
Yeah.
actively look at that stuff.
Well, and I bet there's, as being a woman versus a man, I bet I would call it, some of your perception is in appreciating beauty.
Sure. Agree. Yep.
Yeah. I watch when I go walking every day on my walk, I take some 4 biscuits with me to feed the dogs. And then I keep my eyes open for what's going to seed, what's flowering, and even the squirrels. I whistle at the crows and the squirrels. So the whole essence of what's around me, I'm open to being influenced by.
And so, in terms of that, if we take that further, if you were going to give someone a bit of feedback or a bit of tactic, if they were struggling with confidence and courage like you were, what are one or two things that they could start implementing, whether it be an awareness or an action that might help them along their journey?
Well, I do have a sheet of 50 words that could be words that feel important to you. But let's run past that because that would take too long to describe. But pay attention to what matters to you. Maybe a crying baby is different people could have different emotions about a crying baby. It could be annoying. It could be, let's see, what would help me out here?
Yeah, it could be annoying. You could be empathetic to it. You could want to help. There could be a million different reactions.
Yeah, that baby needs help or it needs shutting up. Would you just take care of your baby? So there's all kinds of reactions that could come from that stimulus. And depending on what your values are, is how would you react to that? Because it might hit your hot button about, oh, the baby's hurting or the baby is missing its bottle. It's hungry. Your interpretation could be a number of things. And it's often, I think, flavored by your value.
Gotcha. Really getting to know your inner value, your purpose will help you with the actions that you take to give you courage.
Yeah. And at the same time, getting to know you better helps you stand a little taller and a little more confidence that this is me and that's you and we're different and yet
that's good and that's fine.
Exactly. And yet, growing up in school, didn't you get ridiculed for not having the right haircut or the right shoes or style? So we were maybe bullied or again called.
We were programmed, really. I think human nature was programmed to be conformists, whereas there's nothing wrong with standing up and expressing your own unique voice, but still within the constraints of a community.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but you got some interesting people roaming around with pink and orange hair, green hair. If they aren't looking out for some attention and see me, well, in an outrageous kind of way, obvious way, let's put it that way. A lot of us are not so obvious about how we're different and proud of it.
Yeah.
I'll never forget seeing on a Lincoln Center program, this was quite a while ago, but it was a lady in a wheelchair. And she had some kind of netting or gauze or some real lightweight material that was blowing in the air. And she was dancing with this fabric. And I thought, how wonderful that she was bold enough in a wheelchair. I think there was somebody else on the stage once in a while that would be coming in and out of the picture, but she was not hiding who she was. And it's getting better about life. The culture has changed a lot with that. But to somebody shuffling along on the sidewalk, they don't know who they are. And I'm a behavioral scientist, and I want to bring out the best in everyone. I think everybody's got a golden nugget inside that they need to discover and celebrate it and be confident in it. And that's a big journey. But just like I didn't know if I was an influencer, you start out by taking baby steps.
So I'd love to hear more about your influencer status on Instagram. How did you grow so quickly? The queen of courage.
That's baby steps too. There's a lady here that Forbes Riley, who back in the day when there's lots of infomercials being done to fill time on TV, she became the queen of pitch. Right. She could sell anything. What is it? Sell
ice to Eskimos. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was in one of her classes about the Queen of Pitch. And so she would ask people one by one, well, what do people know you for? And one lady said, well, my neighbors know me for walking dogs. So she said, well, you're the queen of dog walkers then, giving yourself a title. And so there's 2, 3 people ahead of her. And I thought, well, I guess if I'm fresh courage, I'm probably the queen of courage.
Yep.
So that was just
Wow.
offhand title that kind of came along, but I had a chance to speak to a group of people that were trying to learn English in Brazil. And they didn't care what I talked about. They just wanted to hear English.
Yeah.
So I originally talked to them because this class seemed to be about 45-year-olds, but my hot button to talk about was retirement.
Mhm.
And I says, well, see, this content is something you might relate to your parents about. They might be close to retirement. Well, they actually came back and asked me to talk to the class again.
Oh, wow.
And that time I did it on courage. And after it was all done, they said, that was the best talk that we've had in our class. So I talked about a series of courage to be. Being. I'm a human being.
Nice.
Courage to doing, the courage to take your neighbor a bouquet of flowers or loan them a cup of milk or something.
Yeah.
Courage to volunteer would be another one. And then courage to have dreams. And that started out while between holding up my little art blocks, like this is one of my favorite. Worry is a misuse of imagination.
Oh, I like that. That's very cool.
Profound, right?
I like that.
So I would hold this up and I would say, well, this is what this point means to me and why it can be valuable to you. And this is another one of my favorites. When you see what you're here for, you suddenly find yourself on stage in a play written expressly for
Very
you.
cool. Love it.
Have you ever listened to actors and they're being interviewed like this and they said, this certain play felt like it was written
for me. Yep.
for me. Yeah.
I love that. Very, very
So
cool.
that between courage to be, do, and have, and then reading my little art blocks, and that evolved into doing weekly, sometimes more often. I haven't done any for a couple of weeks because my whole system has been changing, but it's a little 2 or 3 minute preaching at you for some good quality, helping you think. That's one of my values, is to help people think and grow.
Nice. I love it. And tell us more about the work that you do with retirees in particular. How do you work with them? How does that process look like?
Well, mostly right now, probably the last 4 or 5 years has been through podcasts. And I have a goal, Darren, to impact 10% of the boomers to live from you could also call it their GPS, their soul. I felt like it was a soul when I wrote mine. And in fact, here's what I wrote. I am precious jewel of wisdom. I am colorful collaborator, motivator, and learner. I am tranquil, authentic, and pure inspirer.
Oh,
I light fires.
beautiful.
I want to light everybody's fire. So when you live from what feels like a purpose or destiny or a passion, it feels a lot like putting on something that fits you perfectly. I even like to say it feels a little bit like heaven on earth, because I like to gather stories about people who have had near-death experiences. And so I paid attention to how do they describe heaven, all the beauty, all the fragrances, all the animals. I've heard that flowers sing. And so imagine standing there and experiencing what they've experienced through their stories that they've shared with us now. And imagine it soaking into every cell of my being. Now, how does that change life here?
Definitely.
Well, when you're living from your joy and happiness and the reason you're here, it's going to feel just like that.
And so when people work with you, do they engage with you and you talk with them in this manner through virtual conferencing, or do you do it through your podcast, or you do it in another way?
Well, I have on that, I've got it a link to the 90-day process on my website at SharonRolph.com, which is now also the same as effortlessvitality.org. But also, there's a new platform called The Great Discovery, and I have converted my process into 5 modules on the Great Discovery, and it's called Discover Your Spark, Rekindle Your Joy.
Love it.
And when you're thriving and loving life, people tell me I sparkle. And I think when you're so happy with life and that it feels so natural and just perfect for you, then you're going to have a sparkle and a zest for life that a lot of people are missing. In fact, I usually like to repeat this little saying, quote from Thomas Wolfe as I close programs. And it says, if one has a talent and fails to use it, one has failed.
Yeah.
If one has a talent and partially uses it, they have partially failed. But if one has a talent and finds somehow to use the whole of it, they have gloriously succeeded and won a satisfaction few people ever know.
Beautiful.
Well, I intend to help the boomers find that satisfaction and joy few people ever know, because it will heal the world. It will help our communities. And we need a lot of healing and thriving that has been shut down because of the pandemic.
Absolutely. And the way we live these days, the advancement of technology, it's all changing. We're more present, but we're also more detached and isolated than ever before.
Yeah. So I've been doing this loneliness to resilience community for over a year now. And I'm not sure the people that show up is a small crowd. And yet one is from the UK, one is from Malaysia, one is from Colorado. And I've had a guest on from Australia. And like another quick surprise thought that came to mind here a couple months ago was, is there a correlation between authenticity and resilience?
Ooh,
I was shocked what I found out. My research, I thought, what a great question.
I would say there's a big correlation between authenticity and resilience.
Exactly. What you believe about yourself, are you willing and able to get back up when something has challenged you or knocked you down?
Yeah, I love that. Well done. Well done. And so, as you mentioned, if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about your program, just go to SharonRolph.org.
Yeah.
SharonRolph.com. Sorry,
SharonRolph.com. Yeah. Okay. Here's what
there it is, switching around on the way. And share, subscribe. I love it.
There we go. Yeah.
I love this. This is great.
And if you want me to speak to your group, I love to talk about mental strength and possibilities and curiosity and courage.
How cool. I love seeing the writing on a screen or in a photo. I think it's so cool.
But we often lose our voice. And that's part of having courage, being able to speak your truth. We talked about that in the loneliness group, that one guy had come and said, well, you go to a function, how are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. And everybody says, how are you? I'm fine. And you haven't learned anything about each other.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, when you're willing to share your truth that I'm struggling, he tended to be sad and somewhat depressed because his wife had died 2-3 years before this. And yet, if you're saying fine, people don't know any different. And yet, there might be 10 people that are feeling the same thing and they don't know. We're still in that isolation box.
Yep. Love it. It doesn't really create any dialogue or conversation, does it? It just shuts things down really quick.
Yeah, that being transparent. You know, we hear that word every now and then, and it's a powerful word because you cut to the chase, to the truth, and face it and take the consequences.
Yeah, love it.
And you live to tell about it.
Yep, fantastic. Well, Sharon, I really want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been such a lovely conversation and a beautiful perspective and a breath of fresh air as we move into 2025. So really great timing to have you and this amazing concept on the show for the first episode for this year. And I think everybody should really think about, as you say, think about their inner compass and what they're looking to achieve, how they can live in purpose, how they can act according to what their truth is.
Yeah, and on the Great Discovery platform, I have 6 things out there from all the way from free 6 tips for not getting off the track in retirement, getting tripped up. Then I have $5 thing for ideas as how you could volunteer, ways to look up things on the internet that might give you some great ideas. And then I have one that says, what makes you sing? What makes your heart sing? I was in an airplane coming back from a conference where I was speaking, and I come up with 48 things
Oh my God.
that might make your heart sing, like touching the water in 7 oceans,
Wow.
following a monarch butterfly migration, or something as simple as taking responsibility for putting the flowers and foliage on your roundabouts in your city block.
Yeah.
So I tried to make it extremely cheap, extremely expensive, and everything in between. Singing to prisoners. How would that challenge you?
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
Anyway, I think anything's possible, and being curious and keep learning is especially important in retirement because you're the boss now, and it's your responsibility to keep energy in life and the days ahead.
I love that. What a beautiful way to finish up. So, Sharon, really appreciate your wisdom and your incredible story. And I'll direct everybody to your website where they can download and check out all those great resources. So, really want to thank you for coming on the show. Everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did and felt Sharon's energy coming through from the other side of the world. So, we definitely challenge you to live according to her truth and see what 2025 can bring you.
Well, I might need to come see Australia again one of these days.
You definitely should. It's great.
Yeah. Let's see, Faradinkum and Dinky Die. I remember those words.
Yeah. We'll give you all the sayings.
Sharon, it's been great.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And everybody out there, enjoy, and we'll see you very soon for our next episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. Bye for now. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. If you would like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Just reach out via www.suspendedanimation.com.au. Also, remember to click on the link in the show notes for loads of great podcasting resources, webinars, courses, and opportunities to help you on your podcast journey. Many of them free. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.